Hey friends, want to talk to you about a really great plugin called P565 Siren filter set by Pulsar Modular. It's really become one of my favorite plugins and most used plugins right now. Now, of course, it's based on the Yuri 565 filter set, which is a classic, kind of filter hardware, and they've expanded on it and added all these versatile functions to it. But one of the things that really struck me right away is, you come to it as a filter program, but the drive in it is absolutely amazing. It's got a lot of character to it. One of the things that I found is that the feel of a drive is really important to me as a guitar player. That's why we tend to go for tube amps, because of the kind of give and take that they have, the way that you can vary your pick attack and have it saturate differently just based on that, or clean up. So I've got it on all these tracks, and there's really so many things that you can do with it, but we're going to just focus in on using it as a drive. So let's take a listen here. First of all, I've done a couple kind of little demo tracks here to just scratch stuff, generic classic rock sounding. This first one, and take note. Just listen to the guitars, the lead. I'll have it on there. Anyway, you get the idea there. So let's kind of dive in here. We're going to go for the lead guitar first. Now, what I've done with this, because I liked the drive characteristic so much, that the first thing I did when I was playing with it was I've got a handful of really favorite amp sims that I use in the box, with some Neural DSP stuff, the Benson Chimera, Amplitude 5, and some other soft tube and whatnot. And so I used it as a distortion box before the amp. But I want to show you something else I did first here, which is I made a plug-in chain here. I'm going to pull up some of these. And with this entire plug-in chain, I basically built an amp in the box. Now, why would you do that? Because an amp sim is going to be a lot quicker and easier. Sure, but the kind of control that you have with this and this kind of configuration, also because I wanted to really use the character of it, that I wanted to build an amp around kind of this sound. So what I did first is have Siren set up as kind of a distorted preamp of a vacuum tube amplifier. Now, let me explain a few things on here with this drive section. In the stock mode here with Overdrive off, it starts pretty clean. And then as you gradually raise it, it starts bringing in some of those rich harmonics. And if you think like kind of cascading vacuum tubes, being slowly pushed into overdrive, or transformer saturation, all that kind of stuff together really has that kind of character to it. And as you push it up and get pretty moderately distorted, and then it's got this overdrive switch, which if you kick that in, it adds more gain to it. It kind of changes the structure a little bit and pushes it over the top. Now, one of the most important features on this is this pre and post drive switch. And why it's so important, and especially if you're a guitar player, you kind of know that amps, they sound different, and there's some reasons for that. If you think about kind of the classic Marshall configuration inside the amp, you're pushing some gain stages and it's creating distortion, and then it's going into the tone stack, which is just shaping the sound. It's not affecting the character of the overdrive so much as it's just tone shaping. And so that would be like in this configuration of having the drive pre, and so you have the filter controls coming afterwards. Also, you can put it into post. And it's not just having EQ and drive, because what feeds into the other radically changes the sound. So with this, it's a little more like your old like non-master volume Fender Tweed amp, or the original like kind of Dumble topology of the ODS, or the original Mark series by Mesa Boogie, where those rotary tone controls are pretty early in the circuit, and then they've got gain stages to build up, vacuum tube stages to build up the overdrive. And the EQs in there, they don't tend to do a whole lot. They don't make the tone difference so much when you're driving the amp hard, but they change the character of how it's driven, like where you boost and where you cut. Where you cut, you're going to have less overdrive, a tighter sound. Where you push it, then it's going to be, a little more saturated. So on the lead guitar here, I put this drive in post, so we're shaping the sound with the EQ. Next in the chain is a P42 Climax, which is another Pulsar modular plugin that I use on everything, and I've got some other videos on this as well if you want to check it out. And so, in addition to being the main bass amp that I have in the box, I've decided to use it here like a power amp section of a guitar amplifier. And so you've got a couple places where it adds drive, the input, and then I have on the output here the saturation control, plus it has its own filters for just kind of shaping the sound. And the thing about it is that, Siren is acting like the preamp, and then you kind of have a phase inverter stage that's adding some drive, and then you have the power tube saturation. And the trick is like not a whole ton of distortion in one stage, but you're gradually building it up. And great guitar amp makers do it that way. They understand like where you filter things, where you add more gain to get that end result that's really rich and musical. So that's what we've done here. And then, of course, the last component in there is that you need to have the sound shaped by speakers. So I'm just using this speaker shaper here with a green back and a Celestian blue. And for some of the ambience, Pulsar's Lunar Lander, which is adding some analog delay and plate reverb. So with all that together, you end up with this. Now, we could use Siren more like a distortion box. Let's kick in the Chimera here, which is an amp. And pretty close on sound there, but I really liked what I was able to do with P42. Plus, P42 is a lot less taxing on the CPU. Now, to take a look here at the rhythm guitars. Let's just hear them in isolation. So kind of classic rock, very generic, slightly AC/DC-ish. And so what I went about was the same kind of thing, running Siren into P42 Climax, into the Celestian speaker shaper, and then just did things a little bit different here as far as how the tone was set up. So it's a very versatile setup, and you can choose where in the chain you want to add the gain, more in the power amp or the preamp, some combination. Where are you going to change the tone? It ends up being this really fun workbox to get that exact tone. And of course, we've got it on the bass and the drums. And also, let me show you really quick here on the synthesizer, which you didn't hear it with the synthesizer yet, but I just kind of dialed up real quickly. This is a free synthesizer called, whatever it is. It's a Cherry Audio Surrealistic MG1. And, it's okay, it's free. And sometimes with the soft synths, they're not like the most accurate or real sounding. And so if you hear this track with it, it's not the greatest sound. So come at it again. Way I'm using it with Siren is that Siren's going to give it a little bit more saturation, which a lot of those analog synthesizers have a bit of saturation in the mixer and the filter. And also we're shaping the tone because it's a little bit shrill. Even when dialing the filter back on it, it just is something that's not as fat and full sounding. So when we put this in, and then I'll add in some stereo analog delay and also some plate reverb, then we get take a cheap, not that great sounding soft synth and really make it sound a lot better. Without it, so just fills it out and makes it a little more real sounding, like a real Moog. Let's jump ahead a little here to this other track, and well, let me just play it first again. All right, so a little bit different style again. Siren's basically being used the same ways, although there's a few more things done. First, check out this bass track. Let me take Siren and P42 off. I told you that P42 is like basically my bass amp. I'll occasionally use some other stuff, some modeled amps, but I use it a lot because I can really get to where I want to be. Got a pretty good bass tone there, and then if you wanted to like fatten it and just saturate it, make it sound like an old like Ampeg flip top. Yeah, so that sounds to me fantastic, and that's just my Rickenbacker up on the wall there. But I like the way that it just has that kind of, just that right amount of smoosh to it. And the way that it feels and it reacts is really big and fat. I was just adding a little bit of the Pulsar Modular Abyss compressor, which is not out yet, and I can't show it to you, but it's really cool. So expect that sometime soon, I guess. And let's actually jump ahead a little bit here to the Rhodes and take off stuff here. There's a couple different ways that I've used it. Okay, so just a stock Logic Rhodes. Yeah, so my playing's not knocking your socks off there, but just was put in quickly. Okay, so we take that kind of stock electric piano sound, but let's do something a little bit different with it. And I've added some Lunar Lander in there. So we got some plate reverb, and analog delay is kind of coming back on us. And there's two different things that I've done with this, and let me pull these up. Let's go for the sweetener first. And so here's that same tone. I'm going to bypass it, and then you can hear it with it on there, and the way that it's just shaping the tone and giving a little bit of that great saturation. So one great way to use it. Now the second is to use an LFO. Well, I've actually got an that's not the one I wanted. I've got an LFO that's going there. You can see it's changing. It's got a bell filter there that's on a triangle wave LFO synced. And also have an envelope that's controlling the low pass filter. And you'll see them move around as it plays. And it just adds some depth to it. Yeah. That's nice. You could go for some no quarter type sounds there too, very easily. And of course we got in here, let's actually keep that going. And I've got over on the left channel some envelope filtered guitar from Siren. So that's the bandpass filter there being adjusted by the envelope. And it's got a mode on here that you want to check out called Mu, and that's for Mutron or Mutron. And it affects the envelope characteristic, and so it makes it really smooth. It sounds fantastic on guitar and bass. If you want to hear it on bass, check out my Instagram account. I've got a clip up on there with my Ricky behind me and doing some more funk stuff. There also will be another video that's coming out, not by me, but that will be exploring it on bass guitar. And I said, I love it on bass guitar. It sounds really good. So let's check out this lead guitar now. And this is, I think, kind of the one I want to leave you with, because I was telling you about the characteristic of the overdrive, the way it saturates, the way that you can play the overdrive. And maybe if you're using a different instrument, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But for guitarists, like the way an overdrive or an amp responds to your pick attack is very important. And you can shape the sound, not by using any sort of envelope follower or anything, but just by the way that it saturates when you dig into it. And so you'll notice it'll start very clean. This is my PRS Vela with a Firebird neck pickup. It'll start very clean, and then you'll hear me dig in. I'm not changing settings on any of the plugins. It's all coming from the plane. All right. So, been really enjoying using this. And now with this lead guitar part here, I did kind of what I first started with when I got the plugin, is that I pulled up a amp sim. This happens to be an Overdrive Special, a Dumble style amp. Now I'm not having any overdrive on here. All the overdrive, it's pretty clean, maybe a little bit of compression from the preamp here, and everything else is coming from Siren. And unlike the other guitar tracks I did where I had the overdrive engaged, I pulled that off and I just raised a drive control. And again, just that stock drive sound is very touch sensitive. You could hear where I could back off and it got clean and quieter, and then I could push it and it got more saturated and louder. And that's very hard to get in the digital world, to where it gives you such a realistic feel to it. And then I had it going into, again, the same Celestion speaker shaper and Lunar Lander for that tone. So just a quick wrap up. Been loving it on everything that I've been using it on. Drum machines, drums, bass, guitars. synthesizers, pianos, all that. And in fact, probably the next step for me is going to be to check it out on vocals. Now, I hope you've enjoyed the samples I've given you and some of the very specific applications. There's a much wider range of things that it can do. But again, you don't have to take my word for it. Check it out on pulsarmodular.com. You can get a trial of this, but check this out. It's 40 days. There's no white noise, no periodic silence, no not being able to save presets or any of that mess that usually come with plugin trials. You get to use it like you own it. So anyways, there's some video links in the descriptions on a few other applications. Ziad showing it on keyboards, Rhodes doing some dual mono stuff. As well as some other videos that I've done on P42 Climax, if that's caught your attention in this video. So anyways, hope you enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you next time.